evening, everyone. We truly believe in this whole idea of Jan Nivesh. And the whole idea is that if Indian economy is growing, how can you really bet on India and rise with India? Bala, you mentioned that the mutual fund industry in India is about 18% that of the banking industry. But let me throw back a data point at you, which I just confirmed with Nilesh Bhai right now, that the mutual fund industry in America is more than the US banking industry. So when will we reach there?
So we are in that direction. I think clearly if you see the way I think industry has been growing, both in terms of size as well as customer base, as well as giving the right experience to the investors, have been quite constructive. And the effort that is being put by the MF industry in the last many number of years, especially in the last few years, especially the effort that has been put by the MF industry in creating awareness, also are growing quite rapidly. This effort, and combined with the greater experience with the customers have been getting out of their investments into mutual funds across all asset classes, has I think will eventually drive our industry to go to the next levels. And clearly, mutual fund industry has becoming one of the big alternate source of vehicle for parking their hard-earned money, apart from what they have been traditionally used to doing in part of the banking industry. And that's something which is definitely is emerging. And what we have been establishing as a mutual fund as a vehicle for parking their hard-earned earnings is something which will take the industry to the next level. And as you rightly asked the question about when will it become, though it's difficult to actually put the number, put the date by when it will become, but definitely we are in that direction. Each year, if we improve by about 2% as part of the industry, banking industry size, I think eventually we'll go to a big number. May not be as close as to US, but definitely is much bigger than what you are seeing today.
Nimesh, my immediate follow-up question would be that if you look at some of the big companies in India, the private companies, India's biggest bank, India's biggest liquor company, India's biggest FMCG company, everything is owned by foreigners. Today, bulk of the free float, at least in the equity market, for Nifty 50 companies is owned by foreigners. What Indians have done in the last 10 years is that they've imported all the gold in the world, and our total commitment towards equities and debt is not very large. Why, despite such fantastic macros and a strong track record of economic growth and great demographics, Indians are not really exhibiting a lot of faith into equity as an asset class and mutual fund as a preferred vehicle?
Overall, it's a 20-year-old industry. I think it is maturing in a very nice way. It's growing in a very healthy manner. And slowly, initially in any economy, it's a depositor and a borrower. And banking does an intermediation in that. As the economy evolves, the depositor becomes an investor. And the mutual fund ensures that the investee company gets the money. So it's a evolution. So right now, if you see in the retail segment, it is mostly people believe mutual funds is all equity. Slowly, I think the development will happen that the retail segment will see more debt products. I believe that transition is happening. And with this, whatever changes in taxation has happened, mutual fund industry going forward will be well balanced between equity products also and debt products also, and balanced products as a mix of the two also. So I think it's evolving in a nice way. It's growing at a nice pace, and this is the pace at which it has to grow. I don't want it to grow faster. 25-30% a year is a good pace to grow. Any business growing at 25% per annum will double in every 3 years.
When a CEO tells me that he's not excited about the growth, that means you've got no plans to take your company public.
I'm just saying that 25% growth per annum over a 3-year period becomes double the size. Okay. So every 3 years, if you double in size, it's a good manageable growth. Growth has to be manageable. So mutual fund is growing in a manageable, responsible manner.
Mr. Rao, come in on the entire taxation aspect. The advantage what debt mutual funds were enjoying, that was taken away about 3 years ago. The advantage what equities have enjoyed now has been taken away in this union budget. What do you make of this sudden change in the taxation law for equities and debt couple of years ago?
As far as the taxation on the equity side is concerned, I think it was well expected over the last couple of years, and finally it has surfaced in this budget. And because it was well anticipated, I think everyone has actually positioned their returns expectation in terms of communication. You saw a brief reaction to that, but ultimately the rest of the reaction is not really linked to the tax aspect itself. We've always said that mutual fund investment is for the long term. As an industry, that's what we are trying to communicate. So 3 years, 5 years is the period we are looking at. And over that period, whether it is equity, whether it is debt, essentially today the tax environment is neutral to these two asset classes, which is perhaps the way it should be. It is, we don't see it as a negative in the short term. In the year it's introduced, it could have perceptual issues, but I think we are well past that quite quickly.
Mr. Kulkarni, if I look at the entire mutual fund offering, BSE has about 6,000 listed stocks, but I've been told that if I look at the various schemes, what mutual fund schemes or mutual fund AMC is offering in India, you have about 10, 11,000 schemes. So for an investor, I guess it's very difficult to choose, isn't it?
If you're asking me about the depth of the market, I think there's a significant amount of depth in this market. If you just want to look at the small cap space, which is quite misunderstood to a large extent, you got nearly 400 plus companies who are actually making profits of more than 50 crores. And this I'm talking of market cap of the companies currently which are less than 10,000 crores, okay? So that's a significant amount, and our capital markets are very robust. So if you look at the capital market today, the number of IPOs which are going to come out is only adding into the depth of the market. So I don't think that we are going to run out of ideas. I think the market is quite significantly deep and large for all of us to play a pretty significant part of it. Even if we have new schemes and new launches, I think easily absorbable that we have today.
Okay. I'll just turn attention to Nilesh now. Nilesh, we're having this brief chat, over a cup of coffee, and we talked about the size of the mutual fund industry. It's about 20 trillion. But if I look at the nature of the subscribers, large part of the concentration is only in big cities, and large part of very small concentration is coming from small cities. Why is that?
Our distribution network was primarily geared towards urban India. Then SEBI gave us incentive. We also made profit. We reinvested those profits in expanding the distribution. And today, 20% of our AUM is coming from beyond top 15 cities. That's semi-urban and rural India. Clearly, if we see banking industry's base is about 200 years old. And that's how they have been connected to every nook and corner of India. In Jan Dhan Yojana, we opened 35 crore accounts of people who didn't have access to bank accounts. So clearly, 200-year-old industry also needed a Jan Dhan support to provide banking to those 35 crore people who were in probably semi-urban and rural India. I think now we have launched Jan Nivesh, and with your help and support, we should be able to open 35 crore accounts.
Leo, historically we've seen that money always chases performance. And when markets, they go up, inflows are strong. When markets, they go down, redemptions, they start. And that applies for, I guess, across the board, all categories. In this market decline, what has been your experience? And are you getting a sense that the Indian investor is now mature, really understands the power of compounding? He is here for the long term?
Actually, no. The Indian investor is the same investor who was there, and he's as mature or otherwise as he's always been. I think Indian investors are rational, ultimately. At the end of the day, I think in the past, when they have sensed there's a lot of disequilibrium or dysfunctionality, they naturally tend to rotate out of risky assets. That doesn't mean to say they're immature. That actually suggests that they're behaving rationally, because in the face of extreme uncertainty, that's what you do. But I think two things have changed beyond maturity. One, as you know, is the fact that much of the new money that has come into the industry has come in through a cost averaging mechanism, which is the systematic investment plan. So people are therefore mathematically less exposed to that volatility, because if you've come in through a cost averaging route such as a systematically investment plan, you can afford to rationally be a little less panic stricken by the daily movement on your screens or by what you read in the newspapers and so on. That has been a big factor. The second, which has been much commented on, has been financialization. And undoubtedly, beyond all the good work that we have done in the industry in terms of delivering alpha and investor awareness, we have been helped by financialization of assets, which has been the outcome of government policies and other things, whether demonetization, GST, opening of Jan Dhan accounts itself was a very great support to the industry. So it's not really banking versus mutual funds and so on. reality is as the financial ecosystem develops, as financialization happens, as flows come into the organized, if you like, formal sector, you do tend to see benefits to all parts of the system. So we've definitely benefited from that as well. So this is a great initiative. I'm very confident that it will help and continue this journey that is already in motion. And we welcome it as an industry. And that's why I think you see more than 10 lakh crore of assets represented on this stage. I think we're all here just to signal our very strong and collective support for this initiative.
And we are very excited about it as well. So, Sandeep, how about saying something good for media for a change? That media has really supported the mutual fund industry.
While a lot of us will like to take credit of what we have done and the distributors, but the fact of the matter is mutual fund industry would not be where it is today because without support from two. A is going to be media and B is the regulator. I think both the things have played a very important role. I think this initiative is going to be something, it's not basically that we were waiting for, it's a need of the hour if you have to take mutual funds to small cities and towns. At this point of time today also, if you look at the data, so in a country of 125 crore, only 2 crore unique investors is a minuscule number. And I think this initiative is going to be, like I said, can be a game changer for the industry. And also if you were to see, while the industry is doing very well, we are very excited what has happened, what you have to see out of a 21 lakh crore industry, 11 lakh crores of money is institutional money in this industry. So actually, there is a lot more education required while we are all celebrating growth. I am also very excited about what has happened. But in true sense, the retail investors are yet to come. What we have seen is just the tip of the iceberg, or if I can say 1/10 or 1/20 or 1/100th of the tip of the iceberg, because you cannot have an industry as good as this where you're creating wealth for investors and all other revenues are actually, if you compare to any other revenue, mutual funds are far superior. There is no reason why these 2 crore investors will not go to 20 crores or 40 crores. I think it's our hope and wish, I think, when one day we have every Indian household as a mutual fund investor.
Bala, my question to you is that, why is that we've not been able to convince the Aam Aadmi on the street, 500 rupees mutual fund mein dalo, 1000 rupees mutual fund mein dalo. The question is that today, they're happy to buy gold. They're happy to put that 500 rupees under the mattress. They can see the growth in India. They can see the skyscrapers which are going high. They feel sometimes left out because they are not participating, but they're not very convinced about security or the potential what small savings can do. So if you have to, let's say, address this answer in Hindi, how would you convince a dabba wala and how will you convince a murti wala to start investing in equities in Hindi? He's been taking Hindi tuitions. Last time he told me.
I know, but he's not completed them.
Since it is the English channel, I'll talk in English only.
The Nivesh is all India.
I think clearly from an investment point of view, that every individual has to have exposure to a mutual fund. I think that's something which is, I think it's been evolving actually. The first and foremost, the bottom of the pyramid person has still not realized that he has to move out of his own comfort zone of investing in banks, and park with, say, any local either money lenders or money savings companies and so on and so forth. That's something which is there. Second is, nobody has realized the importance of savings for their own long-term needs. I think the real awareness about I have to save for my future, today the future of course is actually determined by many of the aspirations that actually resides with every households in the country, every individuals in the country. That so far that realization has not been probably very, very high among people, investing people across the country. And secondly, especially the people who are the bottom of the pyramid, I think was not existing so much. But definitely in the last few years, the whole concept of urbanization, the rural becoming semi-urban, people moving actually into the urban cities, etc., there has been a significant migration that is happening. And second is the aspiration for the common man across the country in terms of having a better livelihood or better living environment or maybe having better employment and so on and so forth through right education. Also there has been a has been growing quite well in terms of their aspirations. Therefore, now if people have to actually meet their own long-term needs, then mutual funds savings will become part and parcel of their one of the considerations.
Nimesh, no point in getting into Gujarati because Gujarat people, they already know how to understand risk, so you don't have to answer this question in Gujarati. We'll stick to English right now. The same question what I asked Bala. What do you think what can be done at the Jan Nivesh forum so that we can convince the Aam Aadmi to understand the benefits of long-term investing, to start really taking a pledge and start investing 1 day of salary? You may start small, but when you add it up, it becomes big.
I think it's a question. I'll just give 2 anecdotes. I took a Uber pool from going from BKC to my home. Right? The other guy recognized me and we started talking about mutual funds. By the time we reached Kurla, the taxi driver joined in. साहब मेरे को भी म्यूचुअल फंड चाहिए. कहाँ से? मैं और मेरा बेटा रोज बात करते हैं, पर पता नहीं कहाँ से लेना है. बैंक भी गया था और बैंक ने बोला वो लोग नहीं देते हैं. So it's a question of the mutual fund. सही है, campaign done by MFI has taken mutual fund to the common man. Now is the question of distribution. I think the number of distribution points that are there in this country selling mutual funds, we need to increase that big time. We talk about the number of agents, but the number of households one should track. As MFI, we had started tracking the number of households that run on mutual fund income. I think that is quite limited, right? The number of IFAs are quite limited. So we are depending on the banks. So nationalized banks, which is 70% of the banking, if we can get them into distributing mutual funds, as SBI does, I think that will make a big... So the question is now, the realization is there, the interest has been triggered, but now is the main important thing of distribution.
Mr. Rao, is distribution a challenge for SBI because you got size, you got reach, small branches, small towns, you're everywhere?
This is really not an answer that needs to come from SBI specifically. It's like this. Let's look at our SIP story. We can justifiably be proud collectively. Why did the SIP story happen? Manufacturers spoke the same language, distributors spoke the same language, the regulators spoke the same language, media spoke the same language. I think as an industry, we need to take a leaf out of our own SIP story, which is you've made it so simple that you don't need to understand beyond the word. I think it is the challenge of trying to both communicate and to understand markets. Okay, concepts like duration, yield, mind-boggling. Okay, volatility, scary. Now, no one can deal with all this. Just position 2 products and talk in your Jan Nivesh program. Today, all products are identical thanks to categorization. Okay, so you have the generic name, pick your product, and say, for social security, this is what you need to keep putting money in. For a medium-term goal, this is what you need to put in. And everyone communicates the same thing. Uska ek naam de do, whatever we choose.
Do you think AMCs, frankly, are not interested in someone who is interested in a 500 rupee SIP or is not interested in large SIPs, or they are genuinely more than welcoming such unit holders who want to start low and they may remain low for a long time? I'm trying to understand the bottom of the pyramid crowd.
Today, what happens is the reason why it is not being serviced at the 500 rupee person who will be there for life at 500 rupee is also there is a cost of service. Once the cost of service comes down dramatically, you'll see a big behavioral change and you'll see all your people who are these daily wage workers also buying in that 500 rupee per month SIP through a mobile platform which will allow him to do so. And that will change the whole paradigm of this urban and rural combination that you're talking about. So with that, help the mutual fund industry address the 500 rupee customer for life? Yes, the answer is yes. Are we doing it today? The answer is no.
Nilesh, I'll just take very closing comments from all of you. What needs to be done to make sure that the Aam Aadmi gets converted and starts believing in this entire theme of Rise with India?
Where if you participate in the wealth creation journey of New India, you feel you are rising with India. If you are not benefiting, then you feel probably you are left out. Now, we have to bring those investors, those savers from assets like gold. We have probably $1 trillion worth of gold. we have sent more money in import of gold than all the foreign direct investments we have received or all the foreign portfolio investment received. Now, Leo thinks we are capital importing country. I think I'm capital exporting country because we are sending dollars for import of gold. It's an item of investment, but it's going from us. How can we import FII or FDI money when I'm exporting more by way of import of gold?
You know, in India, when the child is born, nobody gives you mutual funds. They give you cash or they give you gold. When do you think that culture will change?
I happen to come from a bent of mind that says investing is not a national duty, it's not a nation-building activity. Unfortunately, today every form of economic activity seems to be being equated with nation-building of some kind.
We are talking about nothing nationalistic. I'm just talking about when you import, when you send more dollars abroad for importing gold.
But it may be a rational...
FII received, you become capital importing.
No, you do. Technically you do. But you can argue that it may be a rational view I'm taking that a store of value like gold, if I'm faced with uncertainty, might not be an irrational decision. You may view it as irrational, but to many people it's a store of value.
Please don't put word to my mouth saying nationalistic. I didn't utter nationalistic at all.
I'm
just putting a fact where we are sending more dollars abroad rather than receiving. Hence, we become capital exporting and not capital importing, as you mentioned.
No, we don't become capital. But we are
nationalistic. I didn't utter a word. You are talking about.
But we are not capital exporting. We don't become capital exporting because we buy gold. I mean, that's per se not enough to make us
No one gives you gold on credit. You have to send it abroad by payment of dollars.
Nivesh, we need to tell people that gold is not productive. See, we have a debate going on. Imagine the Indians.
The point is, you have to. The idea here is not to get people addicted to any particular asset class. I was just trying to make a point that the reason our industry will survive is not through propaganda, ultimately. It is through essentially continuously establishing that we are offering rational economic returns, which are risk-adjusted over time. So we are fundamentally in a rational business. We have a value proposition. We must get people to understand that value proposition. And therefore, I agree, we need products that are suited to certain different segments. And I think people should understand what they're doing.
So, Sandeep, are you with Leo? Are you with Nilesh?
Yeah, I clearly see, I think investment behaviors change over generations. And I think we're clearly seeing that change happening. And Nivesh is going to be that one thing. It's not about, neither have a view on gold, neither debt or equity. I think my view is very simple. I think it's come to a stage now in India where people who were buying gold or real estate, because without understanding, because it was a one-way journey, I think that journey is over in real estate and gold. Mutual funds are going to be the only products which will give them an access to all asset classes. And I think I clearly see, I think the launch of Nivesh and Amphi's collaboration with Times Network, I think it's going to be the defining moment for the Indian mutual fund industry.
Well, we are very excited about Nivesh, and we need all your support, and we would need your blessings rather. The idea is really to empower, educate, and enable Indians to take the right decision. So we wish, since it's a combined journey, I want to wish all of us all the best here. Thank you very much.